Today is Saturday, November 28th. Today we're talking about what makes humans happy. What does the science and research actually say about it? And what role do our daily decisions and even our genetics play? We're getting those answers today from Mike Viking, the CEO of the Happiness Research Institute, which recently opened the Happiness Museum as well. Viking is also a research associate for Denmark at the World Database of Happiness, member of the Policy Advisory Group for the Global Happiness Policy Report, and on the board of the Health and Happiness Research Foundation. And he's a New York Times best-selling author. So as we celebrate the holidays and think about our goals or New Year's resolutions for 2021, we hope this episode about the science behind happiness helps you find a little more happiness in your everyday life. Welcome to the Newsworthy Special Edition Saturday, when we sit down with a different expert or celebrity every Saturday to talk about something in the news. Don't forget to tune in every Monday through Friday for our regular episodes, when we provide all the day's news in just 10 minutes. It's fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. It's time for today's Special Edition Saturday. You ready? Let's do this. Thank you so much for coming on the Newsworthy.
Thanks for having me.
So before we dive into what actually makes people happy according to your data, tell us your process for trying to figure that out.
I know the Happiness Research Institute, it sounds like a magical place. And, people imagine, we spend all days with puppies and ice cream. But unfortunately, it's a regular office. We sit in front of computers and look at large amounts of data. So we look at happiness from a scientific perspective. What we ideally like to do is we like to follow large groups of people over time to see how different life events impact how they feel about life.
All right, so what does the data show? What makes people happy?
A lot of things. So we can see everything from our genetics, we're born more or less happy, to our age. We can see that happiness is distributed in a sort of U-shape throughout life. So we seem to be happiest when we are young and old. And in our mid-40s, we experience sort of a low point for happiness. And we can see a sense of purpose in life drives happiness. We can see marriage has a positive effect. We can see, of course, having good friends is tremendously important, and health and a lot of other things. We can also see that money does matter. On average, we see richer people being happier, but mainly because being without money is a cause of unhappiness. So once we get to a certain level of income, additional $100 per month is not going to impact how we feel about life. And we can also see that people care more about, or often more about, relative income than absolute income. So how much money do we make compared to our neighbors or our family and friends and so on? So a lot of factors impact how we feel.
Is there an income level that tends to be the place where it doesn't matter anymore and you can be happy beyond money?
There was a study in the US a few years back where they looked at life satisfaction and what is called the affective dimension of well-being. So what kind of emotions do we experience on a daily basis? And I think the cutoff point was around 85,000 per year. So quite high up. But I know you guys have people that make billions and billions of dollars. And of course, they're not really making good use of them from a happiness point of view.
So obviously a lot of things that go into this. Is there one or two things that you would say really is at the top of the list, the most important thing, at least for an individual, to be as happy as possible?
Yeah, I think the best predictor often of whether people are happy or not is their relationships. As a scientist, it's really annoying to find something that we already knew. But, a connection with family, our friends, that seems to be a very good predictor of people's happiness. So if I couldn't ask people directly how happy they are, I would ask them how happy they are with their relationships, because that gives me a pretty good indicator of where they are.
What would you say are the biggest myths or misconceptions about what makes people happy?
I think one overlooked aspect is that we are born more or less happy. So we can see from twin studies that there is a genetic component. When we have identical twins with the same genetic material, they have fairly similar happiness levels, despite they might have different life circumstances. But when we have non-identical twins, we don't see a correlation between their happiness levels. So we are born more or less happy. But of course, there's still things we can do to impact how we feel about life. But I think the genetic component is often overlooked.
Do you have any idea of the percentage of each in terms of the impact on happiness?
Yeah, so it's highly debated how big a share of our happiness levels is influenced by our genes. I've heard anything from 10 to 80%. I think around 50% is a realistic, 40 to 50%, I would say, is a good bet, but there's still debate on that element. But I think the important takeaway is also that, yes, there is a genetic element. Yes, there is something that is beyond our control when it comes to our happiness levels, but there's also something we can influence. And I think we need to see happiness the same way we look at health. There's also a genetic component when it comes to health. There's also some things we cannot control when it comes to health and longevity, but there's also choices you can make on a daily basis to improve your health. So yes, some things are beyond our control for happiness, but there's also some things we can influence.
We are not done yet. Still ahead, the impact of the pandemic on our happiness, how the US compares to the rest of the world when it comes to happiness, and what both individuals and countries can do to boost our moods. But first, let's take a moment to thank our sponsor. Can you relate to my struggles finding high-quality meat at the grocery store and actually feeling confident you're getting the good stuff? Or maybe you can find it, but there's only a really limited selection or super expensive options. Well, today's sponsor, ButcherBox, is a simple, sure way to get high-quality, humanely sourced meat. Plus, it's an affordable and convenient option all the time. ButcherBox sends your customized box right to your door every month. I was so impressed getting my first box. It was easy, and now we have a stocked freezer for so many different meal options. Plus, I love knowing there are no added antibiotics or hormones ever. And remember, for a limited time right now, new members get 6 free grass-fed, grass-finished steaks when they go to butcherbox.com/newsworthy. That's 2 New York strips and 4 top sirloins added to your first box for free. But you better act quickly because this offer is only good through Cyber Monday. That's 6 grass-fed, grass-finished steaks for free in your first box. Just go to butcherbox.com/newsworthy. That's butcherbox.com/newsworthy. Also, thanks to our sponsor, Liquid IV. So normally for the holidays, we tend to travel, and Liquid IV is perfect for staying hydrated on flights or long road trips, and the little packets are so easy to take on the go. Personally, though, this year we are staying in town, but I still drink my Liquid IV on a weekly basis, knowing that it can help support my immune system with increased hydration and essential vitamins. Liquid IV has more vitamin C than an orange and has as much potassium as a banana. And they have some delicious new flavors that go with the season, like comforting apple pie. And I appreciate that Liquid IV is not only healthier than sugary sports drinks, it also uses no artificial flavors or preservatives. Plus, I love that the company cares. In response to COVID-19, its products are being donated to hospitals, first responders, food banks, active U.S. military, and more. Liquid IV is available nationwide at Walmart in the beverage section, or you can get 25% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code newsworthy at checkout. That's 25% off anything you order when you use the code newsworthy at liquidiv.com. Okay, now back to our conversation about the science of happiness. Are there differences in what we can do as individuals and what we can do as societies to be happy?
Yeah, I mean, every year the World Happiness Report comes out. It's UN commissioned. It has around 155 countries in it. And often we see, the Nordic countries, Denmark, Finland, Sweden, Norway, Iceland do really well. They're typically at the top of the list. The least happy countries are, unsurprisingly, countries like Syria, Afghanistan, Central African Republic. The US usually around 18th, 20th place. And we can see what drives the differences in happiness levels at a country perspective is GDP per capita, healthy life expectancy, freedom to make life decisions, freedom from corruption, generosity in society, and social support. So those are the main factors that explain differences in happiness levels among countries.
And obviously, right now, the world is dealing with this pandemic. What kind of impact can a major event like this have on both short-term and long-term happiness?
Well, we can see from the studies we are doing during the pandemic that, obviously it has a negative effect on people's mental well-being, because we are concerned and worried about our health. We are concerned and worried about our loved ones. We're concerned about job security, and all those things have a negative impact on our life satisfaction and what kind of emotions we experience on a daily basis. We see increasing levels of loneliness. We see increasing levels of stress and anxiety. And I don't think we needed big data to tell us that. I think that's quite evident just going through the news. But we are seeing that in the data. That's the short-term effect. I think it'll be difficult to say what the long-term effect will be, also depending on what kind of scenarios are we looking at. But my hope is that once we are out on the other side, we will also come with a sort of stronger sense of gratitude for the everyday. I think a lot of us are missing the everyday we had before the virus hit. Just meeting family and friends in a regular setting, sharing good foods with the people we love. I think hopefully there'll be a heightened sense of gratitude over those sort of simple pleasures once we reach the other side.
What would people see at the museum? And do you think it could change their outlook on what it means to be happy?
I hear from guests that it does, but we try to give our audience a sort of 360 tour around happiness. So we look at the history of happiness. So how have our perception of the good life evolved over time? We look at the science of happiness. So how do crazy scientists like me try to quantify emotions? We look at the geography of happiness. So why is it that some countries and cities are happier than others? And a lot of different things. We hope people leave a little wiser, a little happier, and also a little bit more motivated to make the world a better place. So when our guests finish the exhibition, we appoint them happiness ambassadors and give them a to-do list of things they can do to improve quality of life for mankind.
Ooh, give us an idea of what that to-do list has.
Well, one thing is see what you can do to improve your local community. It might be, setting up a small micro library. So on the take a book, leave a book principle, we see that stronger communities are also happier communities. So there's a lot of different things or ideas you can do to sort of make the social fabric in your community a little better.
And to that same point, has there been anything in your life since you started looking into this data that you've changed because of what you've found?
Yeah, I think coming back to what we talked about earlier, the importance of our relationships, I think I'm becoming better at making sure I set aside time for friends and family. My New Year's resolution is often that I need to invite people over for dinner at least once a month, my friends. Of course, this has been challenging this year. But for next year, hopefully that will happen.
Final thought to leave our audience with.
I think the best sort of universal advice we can give to boost your mood is by using something we in Denmark call the ABC for mental health. And the ABC stands for act, belong, commit. And it basically means, do something active, do something meaningful, and do something together with other people. So if we can find activities that sort of hit 1, 2, or 3 of those elements, I think that's a good start.
And you can find links to learn more about the Happiness Research Institute and the Happiness Museum in today's episode notes on thenewsworthy.com. And as always, we'll keep you updated on all the day's news in about 10 minutes, Monday through Friday. Thanks again for joining us today. I'll be back on Monday with your next news roundup. Until then, have a great, happy weekend.